Hello, everybody, and welcome to Man and Moon, where we are channeling Man and Moon. Today, actually, we're going to give you an interview, and it is an interview with Catherine Scherwenka. Have I pronounced that correctly?
You did a great job.
Okay, good. That's because I have been to Hungary before, right? So, Catherine's written this really amazing book, and it was really, really impressive to look at what she has done. It's called PTSD and a Drug-Free Me, which you can find on Amazon. She has a book in a process called Stable, which helps people learn how to navigate through trauma and PTSD without abusing drugs, alcohol, and prescription meds. Her latest project landed her in Las Vegas in 2017, where she, after the October 1st shooting at Mandalay Bay, one of the companies was brought to guide meditation for the first responders working in the shooting. She will share more about that in our interview today. So, first question here, Catherine, is how did you come to work with PTSD? Maybe you can share your story a bit.
Thank you so much, David. I first just want to say I'm really honored to be here with you and to share space like this and to get messages out that matter. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
PTSD, wow. Something that I don't think any of us ever want to have to go through, and yet I feel more people are experiencing it than ever. My story was, grew up in Wisconsin, Midwestern girl, decided to move to Manhattan, New York when I was 21, and had a great career out there, kind of built up the American dream life, thinking that that's what was going to bring me all the joy and happiness. Was engaged to be married to Wall Street guy. I had everything externally figured out, or so I thought, and 9/11 hit. And what I was quick to realize was that if there were any kind of pent up hidden emotion from my childhood, from any trauma that I had endured growing up that I hadn't yet processed, when something like 9/11 happens, well, it all comes kind of rolling out. And that's what happened for me. I saw a psychiatrist because of the symptoms I was having, the shortness of breath, the sweaty hands. My mind was going rampant and I couldn't seem to contain it. I felt I was able to contain for so long, and then trauma, PTSD happens and you kind of can't control. And he prescribed Klonopin for me. This is 2001. Prescription meds weren't that big yet, but they were getting there. And I tried taking the Klonopin, and it was amazing. It kind of took the edge off, but it took the edge off of everything, including my joy, my happiness, my fulfillment. And it didn't like it. I felt kind of numb. I felt disconnected. And after about 9 months, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a different way. And I decided to go off the medication and begin my inner journey, my inner search for a different medication, an alternative medication that was more natural, that would help kind of rebuild my inner strength and empower me. I felt like the prescription meds disempowered me and kept me holding on to believing that I couldn't heal. And now here we are 19 years later, and it's prescription meds, everyone's popping them like candy. And
yes.
That's why I wrote the book, because it's very concerning to me how quick we are to go for the quick fix to try to take the edge off, instead of digging just a little bit deeper internally and exploring what might be there that needs to be revealed, processed, experienced, felt. And once that happens, oftentimes it's done, So we've kind of become a species that's afraid to go there. So sharing my story, sharing my book is to really hopefully inspire and empower people to go there. We all have the power within us. So
Great. Now, a lot of people don't necessarily think, when they think of 9/11, they don't think of post-traumatic stress. How did you come to work with PTSD? And I'm sorry, who suffers, I should say, from PTSD and trauma?
It's funny because the more I work with this, the more I realize the kind of stereotype that people have about PTSD, and it's, you know, the classic war veterans or women that have been raped, they are diagnosed with PTSD. The more I've researched and explored and gone through my own experience of trauma and PTSD, I've realized that it's a spectrum. And trauma is a spectrum, and PTSD is definitely on one end of it. But more people, I think, are on that one end of it than we give credit to. And there's so many variables that go into what would constitute somebody being diagnosed or having PTSD. If somebody experienced, let's say, being in a club and there was a shooting, that might have been their first traumatic experience in their life, and so they're going to respond to it much differently than a person who grew up being emotionally, physically abused, was raped when she was 16, and then at 18 was also involved in the shooting at a club. She's going to have a much different response to that, reaction to that. Probably would have PTSD. Something about PTSD that I like to always drop in is I wish we could drop the D. I wish we could drop the word disorder, because I feel like it puts this unnecessary stigma on that's been diagnosed, which actually keeps the person from feeling like they can actually heal. When we walk around with these labels of, I have this disorder, I have this acronym, it's like a label that we start wearing as almost a badge, and it diminishes our, I think, our warrior within to heal and to move on and to shake that stuff off and be the best version of yourself.
Great point. All right. And how did you wind up in Vegas? That it seems like a contradiction that under, you know, this president administration, that somebody would actually care about the trauma experienced after the shootings.
After 9/11 happened in New York City, I kind of felt like I wanted to write a book, but I didn't know how, what, where, why, or when. But I felt like I had a chapter. Then I did my 17 years of inner exploration, deep diving, self-transformation, learning to become a, you know, meditation teacher and self-help, self-development guide. And I actually lived in India for 3 years, from 2010 to 2013, where I volunteered and thought I was going to become a monk. It was shown in 2013 that I was not going to be a monk, that my work was really to be out here with the people and kind of guiding and sharing my own experience, which would in turn connect with people and help people realize that we're all connected. We all have similar experiences, and we're never alone, and we can heal. I was on the road traveling pretty much nonstop from 2013 till 2017, when I got a phone call from a dear friend who lived in Las Vegas, who I knew from the academy that I study at in India, saying, I just got a call from the Clark County coroner. They're looking for trauma meditators to come in and guide meditation for the first responders. Are you and your twin sister available? I want you guys to come in. And I was like, I'll be there. And the three of us had a company called the Inner Peace Initiative, where we guided, facilitated specific meditations to help people navigate through PTSD trauma in a kind, gentle, loving, nurturing way that obviously wasn't going to re-trigger the trauma. And meditation literally has the capacity to change the brain and change the neural pathways in the brain. And so that was kind of our intention and focus with guiding meditation for the first responders is, yes, they have endured tremendous trauma. Can we guide and facilitate these meditations to help bring them back into a place of stability, balance, calm, connection? And the results have been pretty amazing. We're hoping that the program happening in Clark County will become a beta program for the country. It's my dream.
That is fantastic. And I really support you in this endeavor. It just sounds like really amazing work. For people out there who, maybe they have some of the symptoms, but they don't notice, what are the symptoms? What's somebody going through when they're suffering from trauma? What are they feeling?
There's like I said, it's a spectrum, and there's going to be symptoms that are going to be physical, emotional, spiritual, cognitive, behavioral, relational, neurobiological. There's going to be a whole gamut of symptoms that somebody's going to experience when you've been traumatized or when you have PTSD. Some of the physical could be drug, alcohol addiction, picking up smoking when you weren't a smoker, maybe becoming sexually addicted, maybe you start gambling and you didn't used to gamble. Those kind of things can be the physical side effects. Suicide is definitely a side effect, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then there's the emotional side effects: depression, anxiety, withdrawal. People get gripped in fear. I had a client recently that wouldn't even go out in public places because she would go out and just get gripped in complete fear and freeze. It can re-trigger the trauma. Some people feel numb, completely disconnected. Obsessive compulsive behavior could be a side effect. And like I said earlier, when I was experiencing PTSD in New York City after 9/11, I felt out of control. I felt like I was unraveling.
Wow.
Which can be very scary,
Yes.
Relational stuff, you'll notice maybe you're not able to trust anyone anymore in your relationships. Your sex drive might diminish or go away completely. A lot of times you can be in a relationship with somebody and yet still feel very distant, not underlie. You might even have a hard time maintaining a relationship, period.
Yes.
Which can be difficult because it's like when you need the relationship the most, it's oftentimes hard to maintain because you've got so much going on internally. Let's see what else. More cognitive side effects. You can't even remember the trauma. I have clients that say they can't remember anything from their childhood at all. Literally, like the brain blocks everything out and you're not able to remember. Other people respond differently they can't get it out of their head. The trauma just keeps repeating over and over and over in the head. Again, it's kind of that obsessive thinking. I've had clients that have a hard time making a decision, staying focused. They get easily distracted, off track. It's literally like you feel scattered and you can't pull it all back in. Some people stop believing in God altogether. That's more spiritual. Those are definitely a lot of side effects, but
yeah. Well, it sounds like a host of people too. It sounds like, maybe a lot of people might have mild symptoms and still be very much affected. How are they feeling? Why are they feeling this way? What's going on in their brain and body?
I always like to talk about the brain and the mind as two different things. The mind is much more vast. It's much bigger than the brain. The brain is housed in this little skull, and it's rather small. And the mind is, I like to say, is a verb. The brain is a noun. The mind is moving. It's active. And so trauma and PTSD affect the mind and the brain differently. The great thing, there's so much research being done, scientific evidence being done these days about the ability to heal the brain, which will in turn shift the mind. So these neural pathways that kind of run in the brain, and when you endure trauma or PTSD, it's kind of well, I'll just use the word negative. It's kind of a negative neural pathway that when the slightest thing triggers you, the reaction the brain will go to is to go right into that negative neural pathway, which kind of can perpetuate stress, anxiety, depression.
Mm-hmm.
When we do practices like meditation, practicing awareness, mindfulness, you're literally creating new neural pathways in the brain that are more positive, connected, calm, steady, so that when a trigger, let's say, happens, instead of going to that negative one that's more destructive, obsessive, you're going to stay, hopefully, start moving into that more connected, calm place.
Great.
The part of the brain that gets triggered with trauma and PTSD is the limbic system. It's the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the prefrontal cortex parts of the brain, which has to deal with our short-term memory, our fight, flight, freeze, our ability to discern and make decisions. The amygdala it's what goes into action whenever we feel a threat. So when you endure trauma or PTSD, the amygdala can almost stay in hyper awareness, keeping in fight, flight, freeze all the time, which is why so many people that suffer from trauma and PTSD, their nervous systems are shot. Their adrenal systems are shot, thyroid, the beginning of the breakdown of the physical body starts to happen. That's why I'm a kundalini yoga teacher. So one of the things that I bring a lot into my healing and practice is building up your nervous system. Because if you have a strong nervous system, you're going to allow the parts of the brain, the amygdala, to relax, to get out of the threatening phase, get out of that fight, flight, freeze, and take you back into present moment awareness. That's
great. As you describe this, I have to say, I myself, I'm like, wow, I've certainly experienced some of these symptoms. I'm sure that as I look at my own life, I can see some PTSD in my own, in my own experiences. I'm really quite moved by that. I'm actually going to say that I didn't necessarily notice that until you mentioned this today. So maybe that leads to my next question. How can they begin to alleviate this cycle of experiencing the trauma over and over again?
There's a lot to that question, but so I'm going to give you a couple different answers.
Okay.
Depending on your situation and depending on the severity of the trauma and the PTSD. Some people, I'm not anti-prescription medication. I should have started the interview with that.
Okay.
Sometimes it's what people need in order to take that edge off just enough to really start to heal. And that's okay. There's no judgment. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when we give up and we just start using that as a crutch to get by. That's when I get sad and disappointed, because you're giving up on life, and life is meant to be filled with magic, joy, wonder. And if we give up and we just keep popping the pills, you're always going to have that fuzzy, kind of numbed out experience of life. If that's your jam, go for it. I've experienced something vastly different that rocks my world that I'm excited to share with other people. So first and foremost, if you need the medication, take it until you're able to start dedicating, devoting, showing up for you to heal yourself. Because everything you have in order to heal is already inside. You just have to uncover it, and you have to reconnect to it. You have to believe in it. You have to trust it. But it's all there. So I work with people. I put together a 6-week program from my book. It's called The Stable Process, where I work one-on-one with people on Zoom. So it's a video conferencing, so I can see you.
Okay. But they could be anywhere. They don't need to be local.
Yep, anywhere in the world. I work with people all over. And I take you through a beautiful process called stable, where you stop, you take inventory of what's happening, becoming aware of where it is in the body. Then you have to be connected. You have to let go and forgive, and then you'll elevate. That's kind of the 6-step process.
Uh-huh.
And the transformation that happens from that it's been beautiful. It's powerful. It's literally giving you your power back.
Mm-hmm.
You have all these tools that you can use day to day. They're very practical. It's not just woo-woo guru or all.
Yeah.
It's definitely practices that you can apply to yourself and your life, that then you can create the change. You can be the change. So I want to empower people. That's my goal. That's what we need more of in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one option to alleviate the cycle of the trauma. If you're not able to do that, or don't have financial means to work with somebody, then there's so many resources these days to start a meditation practice. Meditation's my medication. It's where it's at. Like I said, lots of scientific studies being done on the effects of meditation, how it literally will restructure the brain, taking you out of the fight, flight, freeze, bringing you back into the state of connection, calm, creativity. That's kind of what I would recommend at this point.
Great. That's really, really useful. So one phrase I found really compelling in your webinar on PTSD, which is this: can we be comfortable being uncomfortable? I found that really revelatory. Can you tell us what you meant by this?
It's one of my favorite quotes, because we've created a species that, especially our culture, I know you're in Australia, I'm in the United States, but we've created a culture here in the West that kind of thrives on putting out the image of perfection and everything's good, got it all together, and of course nobody wants to hang out with Debbie Downer.
Right.
Promoting, and yet if you're a human being, you have a full spectrum of emotion, from fear, worry, dread, anger, hatred, lust, jealousy, comparison, to joy, connection, gratitude, compassion, kindness. There's a wide spectrum of human emotion. Why do we all think that we should only be doing these ones, the positive ones? It's okay if we experience the uncomfortable ones. Can we fully embrace being a human being, the full spectrum of what it means to be a human being, and allow ourselves to be comfortable, meaning I'm not resisting the fact that I'm feeling rage right now, or the fact that I'm feeling jealousy right now. Can I allow for that emotion to be there? That's what I mean by being comfortable in the discomfort, being uncomfortable. Most of us, when we get uncomfortable, David, we squirm, we reach for the quick fix, we reach to pop the pill, we go have a glass of wine, we pick up our device, we get on our social media, anything to distract us from feeling that discomfort, which will only perpetuate the discomfort. Hence, you're on the freeway driving to work, somebody cuts you off, and road rage appears. You're like out of control, emotion, rage, screaming, completely out of proportion to what just happened. It's because we don't allow ourselves to fully experience the discomfort, the uncomfortable feelings.
Yeah, great.
So.
Great example. This is a slightly off our question topic, but I just want viewers to notice that the day that I first spoke to you, I kind of had a confrontation with somebody blocking everybody's parking space. One thing I keep telling my clients is stop being so nice all the time. You don't always have to be this, oh yes, everything's going to be good. Especially, and I'm just going to say this, especially I find women who are always like, oh, let's just be deep in this spiritual place. And I'm like, that's great. And say no to that guy because he really is doing something wrong. I know maybe you don't remember exactly what your advice was in this particular situation, but maybe you could just give it to me again. I'm really angry. This guy's blocking me. I kind of have two feelings. Like one is oh, just be good and let it go. Why worry about that? And then the other hand, just, I want to yell at him and be like, who do you are another Donald Trump. Who do you think you are? Just a very practical matter. Can you give me like some advice if I or our clients are in that kind of situation?
So there's a couple things I want to, on how I want to respond to that, because I want to acknowledge and give space for the rage, the anger, all of that to work itself through. But what happens, David, is that anger, rage, hatred comes through in a situation that's disproportionate to what we're throwing up, right?
Yes.
And so the person that cut you off in the parking lot, which it's not really a big deal, right?
Right.
Because we've probably been stuffing emotion down, whether it's done for the day or the week or the month or our whole life, who knows? That stuff's got to come out, and it's going to come out. And it's probably going to come out in situations that create the slightest little opening.
Yes.
For the brain to say, oh, this is it. This is where I'm going to let it rip.
Right.
Go off, right? When I had this realization, when I really started to dig deep and process my own internal hatred and rage and anger and pain and sadness, and really feel and experience it. And then from that, David, what happens is you start to realize the interconnection of everything. How all humans are connected to all plants, to all insects, to all animals, to the water, to the earth, to the sky, to the universe, stars, planets. As woo-woo as that might sound, right. It's reality. We are all connected. And if we're all connected, then that means we don't look the same. We all have our different earth suits that we've been given.
Yeah.
We're all human beings that have that spectrum of human emotion. And the more I've been able to process my own internal destructive emotion and feeling, I feel like the more, or the less, I should say, the less apt I am to react in a situation like somebody cutting me off in a parking lot with the rage, because I'm processing it as it's coming instead of stuffing it down.
Right.
And when somebody drives by me on the freeway and flips me off and cuts me off, I literally do this, not because I think if I do this, it's going to shove down my rage. I do this because I literally feel compassion for that human, because they must be in so much pain to be behaving that way. Anyone that's behaving in that kind of reactive, destructive, mean, aggressive manner, they're experiencing pain. They're in pain. And if I'm not in pain, oh my gosh, I'm looking at another human being that I'm connected to, and they're in that much pain. I am really sorry, brother. Honestly, I'm sorry. That's from my heart. But don't do this unless it's from your heart.
Don't fake it.
Don't fake it. The biggest thing we could do for humanity is be authentic.
Yeah.
If we were authentic, we all think we'd be a schizophrenic, crazed world, which we probably would initially.
Right.
Because we stuffed up all the emotion, hurt, feeling, thought, all that crap. But once that all kind of worked itself out, and on a moment-to-moment basis, we were able to fully process what was coming up, whether it was anger, happiness, joy, hatred, whatever. But it would be instant that we would process it. There'd be no big highs and lows, and it would all kind of even out a little bit. When you're addicted to drama, which we are all addicted to drama, the highs and the lows and the highs.
Wow, yeah, it's true.
So there's a lot of layers to all of this.
Well, and I just might summarize, it sounds a little bit like when I'm having that emotional reaction, it's actually kind of a message from the universe. Dave, you need to work on some anger you got down there. You're not processing it very well. It doesn't mean I shouldn't confront them. Maybe I would, but with some kind of equanimity, without the rage motion, that goes on. It's actually kind of universe generous message to me that, Dave, you got something to work on.
That's very mature of you to admit, and that's the truth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's always, I think, a message saying, go in, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Okay. Great.
Not that we're never going to get angry, because
You will.
we will get angry,
Mm-hmm.
but there won't be a story that keeps repeating itself over and over once you've expressed the anger.
Aha.
Guilt, the shame, that I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that. That won't be there if it was clean.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I might push this point a little bit further, there may be a lot of viewers who are experiencing this rage as you're watching these terrible things that are happening in our society. My tax dollars are being spent in these awful ways. And, you know, I feel a lot of rage watching this on television. What would you say, you know, to these viewers? You know, what would you say? What can they do to sort of work out this anger, which in some ways is very righteous?
Yeah. I mean, you can physically work it out if you want to do that. You know, there's the old beating on the pillow and screaming at the pillow, and you can literally work that out if that's something that feels good to you, and it does to some people. I've done it, and it felt great to me.
Okay.
When after 9/11 happened, I was furious. I was devastated. I was paralyzed in fear. I felt like I wanted so badly to help change the world, because I could not believe what was happening to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I felt frozen and I couldn't do anything. And so I thought, I'm going to become a politician or a lawyer to create change. Quickly to realize, you're not going to be a politician or a lawyer.
Right.
Not your jam. And so when I found the academy that I study at in India, their whole message and memo is, the way you help the world is by helping yourself. And, you know, we all think about world peace and what we need to do to change the external to bring world peace. If each one of us literally went internal and brought internal peace, that is what would permeate out into the world.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with any social injustice, any situation that we're observing externally that infuriates us. You need to feel that and maybe express it, but then go in and ask yourself, how can I work this through and come back to that space of internal peace and calm and connection, which then translates back out into the world. And that's what I'm putting out in the collective, which is going to help elevate that situation.
Brilliant.
And it's hard for the mind to comprehend, because we think, really, that's not going to do anything, but I guarantee you it will. Think of Gandhi, what Gandhi did.
Mm-hmm.
Think of what he did with peace. And it was all his internal peace that created the external peace, that created the shifts and the changes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've been so driven on pushing and fighting, and
right.
when we push and fight and scream and yell, we're putting more of that out into the collective.
Yes.
Let's put more calm, connection, steadiness, stability out into the world and see what that does.
Yes, right. And no one can take that away. Once you got it, no one can take it away. That, I think, is really a great message. I really appreciate what you said there. Look, I just want to point out to people the resources and how they might work with you. Could you tell us, if there's free resources? Again, there's some people who may not have the ability to do one-on-ones with you. What's available for free?
So right now I have a website, catherinescherwenka.com, that if you give me your email address, I write a newsletter once a month. I've actually been not doing that so consistently because I've been writing, but if you give me your email address, I'll send you a free copy of the webinar that'll definitely help you with the PTSD and the trauma. It's a little breakdown of the 6-week process that I do with people one-on-one. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I would recommend. I'll hop on a 30-minute call with you for free and see if working together is in alignment.
Terrific.
Yep, that's no problem. You can email me, info@catherinescherwenka.com.
And I'll put that as a, I'll sort of add that at the bottom here for those who can't spell Scherwenka, right?
Thanks, David.
Sure. Sorry, go ahead.
And then I do have some meditations for free on an app called Mind Rise. and download the app, and then there's some free guided meditations that I do on there. And then I also have a YouTube channel, which has a lot of free kundalini yoga classes, a couple talks that I give, and I'm kicking my YouTube channel back in. I just posted my first kundalini yoga class last week. I hadn't done it in a year or so.
So, and your YouTube channel is, can you say the name again?
Catherine Scherwenka. It's my name.
Okay, just your name. Okay, great. If they did want to work with you, again, they would just contact you. And if they did want one-on-one?
Yeah. It's info@catherinescherwenka.com.
Okay, terrific. Catherine, I really, again, I just can't say how impressive your work is. I've done so many things, but this just seems to have a very, very interesting and very sort of current, I think, meaning to a lot of people right now. I think the world is kind of being traumatized. And I just got to say, I really am impressed with your work. I really highly recommend that everybody use these free resources. Everybody will get a lot out of them.
Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate and honor what you do.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great. It's been such a pleasure.
Yep, definitely.
Take care.
All right, you too, David.